Hey, thanks for joining us on the EvoSec podcast. My name's Aaron Davis, and I've got my best friend, my twin brother, here with me, Eric Davis. How you doing, brother?
Well, doing really good, man. I'm not gonna lie. Our son Nick and his family started their PCS journey to Japan this week, so a little bit bittersweet for me this week. I've been used to being able to see him, my grandson, and my daughter-in-law pretty much every month. Since
Yeah,
we've been here. So yeah, bro, I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little bit sad about, excuse me, sad about that, but it's opportunities that God is opening to them, with his new MOS, doing stuff. Go ahead.
where about is he going? Okinawa?
Yep. Okinawa. Yep.
Mhm. Now, how
Yeah. And,
close is that to Tokyo? Forgive me on my
oh,
geography here.
it's way off. They're very far from each other.
Oh, I see.
Okinawa is way southwest
Okay.
of Tokyo and fairly far from the mainland, or I guess you want to call it mainland because all the islands and whatnot. But yeah, Okinawa is definitely part of Japan, but it is a secluded island. So,
Interesting.
but we're looking forward to heading there at some point. We're going to go see him for a vacation at some point, and
Oh
you
man,
know
that'd be awesome.
everything that, like, I've got a newer lard that's working with me. His name's Mark. Shout out to him because he's a he's been listening to our show, ever since I told him about it, and he's been coming and talking to me about some of the subjects. So it's very likely that he will hear this. But Mark, shout out to you, buddy. I appreciate your support and your hard work at the job. So, but yeah, with that said, like, he was stationed there at some point, and multiple other former Marines that say, man, they're gonna love it there. So,
Cool.
and I mean, it's
So,
like, to my knowledge, it's pretty much just like being in Hawaii almost. Just as far as the same kind of tropical area like Hawaii. I'm sure there's differences, but
excellent. Have you ever been to Japan?
I haven't. Only passing through, only stopping through Norita in Tokyo,
So,
on flights to
doing
elsewhere.
a flight
Yeah.
touchdown.
Yep. Yep.
I see.
Yeah. So I don't count that as going there.
Yeah.
If I did that, man, I've been in so many darn countries, but of course I don't count that fully. But it's still, I guess you've been there. But
Okay.
with
Well,
that said, yeah, man, I'm doing good otherwise, man. It's been a good week training wise as well, which we're gonna hit on.
oh yeah. Well, before we move on, I do want to implore our audience to go ahead and rate the show. Go to iTunes and please rate our show. For the listenership we have, it's kind of ridiculous how few ratings we have.
Yeah,
So we
agreed.
only accept 5-star reviews. So just keep that in mind. But in all seriousness, please go out there and rate it, and especially share the show with your friends because we know a lot of people would enjoy this show and get a lot out of it. We've got excellent guests, and I believe some excellent information for people to hear.
Well, Aaron, if I could add to that, I'd also like folks to go out to our YouTube and Rumble channels and subscribe and get on there and like some of our videos. Now, granted, I know a lot of folks out there. I'm the same way. Even Joe Rogan's show, I'm not apt to sit down, excuse me, and watch a long form interview. I prefer listening to long form interviews. Um, but that said, we're going to start putting a lot more, shorter content. And I know I've been saying this, accountability on myself, since we're talking a little bit about accountability, is I need to just split up really good topics, that are only, 5-10 minutes long, maybe even shorter on our shows, and start throwing those on there. I'm gonna start that this week. I'm gonna start doing multiple clips, and so that folks that aren't just as they're not inclined to sit and watch a long interview, but maybe some really good points out of some of our shows we'll put on there. And you and I are gearing up to do a lot more of our training content,
Oh yeah.
jiu-jitsu wise, training events wise. And so folks, get out there and subscribe and like some of our videos, because it'll help us grow. And Aaron, I'll second what you were saying. It is a little silly knowing the downloads that we get on our audio versus how many people watch our videos on YouTube. It's a little bit embarrassing, but that's okay. We just need to keep pushing people to go out there and at least subscribe to help us if they're listeners. And let's just face it, if they get something out of our show and they don't mind doing that, it'll help us.
Yes, sir. Well, bro, let's just jump right in here. We have a lot of fun topics to get through here. So why don't you take it away?
Well, Aaron, you and I had been speaking not too long ago about the notion that concealed carry holders are a massive threat to society. That's certainly something that the anti-gun left, or the left in general, like to portray. And they push, and they definitely manipulate statistics. I mean, everybody does it, I suppose. I just think on the conservative side there's going to be less of that. But Aaron, I have to start with this one bit of information. So you and I were speaking on the phone, I think it was yesterday, after I had left the range. Or was that 2 days ago? Goodness. Yeah, 2 days ago. No, it was yesterday. Goodness gracious. I'm losing time here. Is we know that if there was a massive problem with concealed carry holders committing crimes, especially murder, and being convicted of murder, that information would be all over everywhere. Well, it's really not, because that's I think that speaks volumes, But one thing I did find in doing a little bit of searching is I found a heritage .org article that made me, or pointed towards, some information on Violence Policy Center, which they're an anti-gun group that a good portion of our audience may be familiar of. So this is something very interesting, Aaron. So they have this count that is concealed carry killers, right? And Aaron, for 16 years since 2007, they have been tallying concealed carry holders that have supposedly, or allegedly, pardon me, committed murder or violence. And the problem with some of the data, I'll just lay straight out, is a lot of these people haven't been convicted either, right? But so, Aaron, you're aware that there's 22 million concealed carry holders in the United States, and I want to add to that. There's a lot of states that do not require concealed carry licenses anymore. So we have a lot of states that went constitutional carry, which is great. And I have my thoughts on why I will continue to have concealed carry licenses, because I travel a lot. But that said, Aaron, over 16 years since the VPC started tallying this data, there has been 2,490 concealed carry holders that have allegedly committed either murder or violent crime. So, by my calculations, Aaron, over that 16 years and 22 million concealed carry holders, that's 0.0113%. So, if concealed carry holders were really a problem and really a massive danger to society in general, wouldn't that be a hell of a lot higher? I mean, that is minuscule. It's nearly statistically insignificant. What your thoughts on that?
Well, I think I can expound on that with some more statistics and from some good studies here. So this is from a study by Howard Nemerov. Hopefully, I've pronounced that correctly, but it's a study called Concealed Handgun Licensing Asset to Texas. So, to sum this up, the Texas Department of Public Safety actually compiles demographic information on concealed carry license holders in Texas, which you would agree that's a large state. So, there's quite a few concealed carry holders within that, 22 million that would be in Texas. So they compiled data, and this gentleman, Howard Nemerov, did a pulled together and did a study on this information. And so these are some good summary stats on that. So Eric, this is quite interesting. So from 2005 to 2007, there were 103 crimes. Let me digress a little bit. They look at data of convictions of the normal population, non-Texas license holders, and police. So concealed carry holders, police, and Texas non-license holders here. And this is just over 20. This is interesting. This is just people over 21. Okay. Think about how many crimes are committed by people under 21.
Oh, yeah.
So in this, 103 crimes or convictions of U.S. police, 392 of non-license holders, 58 convictions of license holders in Texas, concealed carry license holders. So the license holders are 7 times less likely to commit crimes than non-license holders. Now, going even further into the data, from 1996 to 2015, license holders were 10 times less likely to commit violent crime and get convicted of violent crimes. So, I mean, that's pretty serious. And this was a statistic that a lot of people are aware of, that even concealed carry holders are significantly more law-abiding than police officers.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
and incidentally, John Lott brought that up in amicus, if I say that right.
Amicus brief.
Amicus, thank you, Aaron. A brief that he submitted to the Supreme Court for the Bruin case. He made that point. Now, granted, so I want to say right up front, we know what the real record is for law enforcement officers out there. Our brothers in blue, we know that 99% of the time, throughout hundreds of thousands of interaction with police officers, happen in no incident. Mm-hmm. Right. So what other industry, I say this all the time, has that kind of record? So all that said, I think that's why it's important that does have some weight on concealed carry holders essentially being just pretty much upstanding people, and they've went through the process of requesting their local or state government giving them permission to do so. I have my feelings on that in the first place, but again, I point towards there are absolutely benefits for me having a concealed carry license here in North Carolina, because it has a lot of good reciprocity through here, and I do a lot of traveling. So with that said, Aaron, that was one of the things I was going to bring up, but you beat me to it. Do you have some more stats there? And I can jump on a couple of points too.
I think that's succinct enough from this particular study.
Yep. Yeah. So the other thing, Aaron, that I wanted to bring up on the VPC's misuse data is we know that a good percentage, and I didn't get the exact percentage at this particular moment, but it's quite large in some of the data that I've seen from theirs, is it's a lot of people committing suicide. And I'm not at all discounting that. That's tragic, right? But in these instances, those people that committed suicide, they didn't commit murder against another person holding a concealed carry license. Unfortunately, had, likely some mental issues or just, whatever caused them to go that direction. So I think it's misleading to use suicides as like there's somebody out there going and shooting somebody out in the old west like they try to portray. So,
Eric,
oh,
let me interject real quick. Taken back to a few episodes ago, why we're here and why we're actually going to start digging a little further into these stats is because of the egregious things said by the governor and the DAs, etc., in New Jersey regarding their concealed carry laws, that they were so concerned of the danger that concealed carry holders would hold against the public at large. I mean, just egregious things. So that's why we're this is our answer to that. We're going to dig into these statistics because you hear this stuff on other shows, but it's I don't think it's been given the attention that it needs to, especially with all these legal fights going on for after the Bruin decision, and then these politicians reacting that it was just so the Bruin decision was such a dangerous precedence for
yep.
the public at large. So I just wanted to interject that. Wish I would have said that when we first started out here.
So, Aaron, back to New Jersey, something interesting that they just started. And I'm going to caveat this statement with I am absolutely in favor of people getting proper training, right? I mean, concealed carry license tests, especially the shooting tests are, in most cases, they're a joke, right?
Mhm.
I'm not saying that folks shouldn't get training. We think that every person that carries a pistol should have at least a level 1 defensive pistol course, and they should practice using that information and what they gained on a regular basis. With that said, Aaron, because New Jersey feels that concealed carry holders are so dangerous that, Aaron, I was gonna bring this at another show, but it's important to at least start on it. We can talk about it, and I'll put it in the show notes. But Aaron, they now have a new proposed shooting test that includes shooting at a FBI Q target at 25 yards, and it's slow time frame, right? I get it. Anybody with decent marksmanship will have no issues with that. But it also includes changing positions into the prone, adding reloads, and it all has these time constraints. And the only reason I bring up the time constraints is that, Aaron, how many people deserve, or excuse me, their God-given right to be able to carry a weapon for self-defense? How many of them would in fact not get a concealed carry license if they look at those requirements and say, man, I can't do any of that?
Yeah. So
Which, Aaron, is the intent of New Jersey. So we're talking, it looks like Aaron, this is what it looks like. It looks like they took some police qualification and maybe either used some of the standards from it and or dumbed down some of it, but essentially kept the spirit of a police qualification to have a requirement for concealed carry permit requestees. I'm going to use that word. Be tested on that. And
so
again, I'm go
let
ahead.
me
Mm-hmm.
let me ask this. You're saying that they are proposing this, putting this into legislation for.
So this is the attorney general. So this is likely, and again, speaking slightly half cocked or just off the cuff,
Mhm.
which we can dig into it further. But essentially, it's the attorney general's office coming up with this proposed rule for the concealed carry license
Man,
process.
I would say near guarantee it is to discourage people
Oh,
from
that's
applying.
the sole reason for it. And again, I hate to sit here and keep repeating myself. Well, okay, great. Everybody should be able to do what's being requested and much, much more.
Yeah.
But the fact that you are requiring that for folks just trying to get their concealed carry license it's on its face clearly a deterrent
Bro,
for
let me
people.
just tell you right now, I'm getting freaking pissed off right now hearing that. I, man, I will, sorry, people that live in New Jersey, but I will never go there and pay taxes for a hotel or whatever. I will never go there. I will never go to California. I will never go to New York. Okay. I I'm sorry, but I'm freaking pissed off about this, that they hate freedom that much.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. It's very infuriating that when we look at the data that we're kind of presenting here
And
is
bro, those people are protected every freaking day with people with guns. But the little guy can't do it. Okay, you carry on because I'm not acting here. I'm getting pissed off.
it's okay, Aaron. We have every right, and surely so do those people as well. And Aaron, I'm remembering my train of thought. The point I was going to bring up is that for our listeners out there, again, to drive home what Aaron was saying earlier, is that we made the decision that we are going to start compiling this type of data in a filtered down version and start extrapolating the data better, and maybe even possibly be a place where, especially on our website, I plan on throwing up a section on our website um, that's going to be possibly one resource for some of this information. But I think, basically we need better information than what we have out there, and we know why. We know why. It's because it's such minuscule statistics or minuscule convictions of concealed carry holders. And then on the flip side, we know that, again, the data that the CDC took down off their website. Why did they take the data down? Because at the behest of anti-gun organizations, the statistic of around 250,000 to 3 million people a year save themselves or others with a firearm, and 85 to 90% of the time the trigger doesn't have to be pulled. So then we juxtapose what data we're talking about here, this 2,490 concealed carry holders that VPC has been able to tally in 16 years. It's ridiculous on its face.
Well,
So
bare minimum, thousands of people protect themselves and others a week.
yeah, and
That
Aaron, I think it really brings me to another concern that the left has, and Aaron, so I'm going to, a shout out. I'm holding up. This is an older book. I have the newer version ordered right now because it's some of the data I want to pick apart, and this is More Guns, Less Crime by John Lott. Now, all you can find online is
refutations of that book.
say again now.
I'm jumping ahead, but if you
So,
search
no,
for information on that, you simply find refutations of it.
yeah, yeah, and a lot of times you've got folks just because the NRA obviously is going to latch onto some of this data. Why wouldn't they? Because it's scientific, empirical data that unfortunately it tells a picture that the left hates. So then they go and they try to pick apart. Oh, he's just a NRA poster child or an NRA flunky. So you can't. So they're just trying to discredit his data instead of to provide their own data. That's at a minimum that isn't completely flawed. But anyway, so a shout out to our buddy Greg back home there in Oklahoma. I'm looking at this.
Who I ran into just the other day at the QT. as I was getting some coffee.
Awesome. Greg's a great person, a really good friend, and a huge contributor to why you and I are sitting here right now.
I agree,
So,
man.
but I'm I'm looking at this, and this is signed by Greg. Happy 26th birthday, Eric. So, Greg. So nearly 24 years ago. So yeah, so this is definitely a dated book, but the information here still is valuable. So Aaron, one of the left's concerns is, concealed carry holders, it just going to cause an increase in mass shootings, right?
Oh
So
yeah,
let
yeah.
me see if I can do this with my eyes here. So Aaron, so regarding mass shootings, so John Lott took some studies or a study that looked at some data from 1977 to 1992. With that, this excluded, Aaron. Let me see if I can get this. Sorry, buddy. This excluded crimes involving gang activity, drug dealings, a holdup or a robbery, drive-by shootings, that explicitly or implicitly involve gang activity, organized crime, or professional hits, serial killings, or killings that took place over the span of more than one day. So, again, what a real mass shooting is, not what the left tries to compile using those types of crimes to amass their
I would say
data.
what they want to what they want people to think of when they say mass shooting, they want to make everybody picture in their mind that it's one of the terrible public random mass shootings where it's
Yes,
some nutcase that opens fire on people.
exactly, Aaron. To your point, the data used here where places like public shootings occurred include such sites as schools, churches, businesses, bars, streets, government buildings, public transit facilities, places of employment, parks, healthcare facilities, malls, and restaurants. So that's what the left wants us to believe, is that all these mass shootings that are gang related, crime related, um, are those types of shootings. So, with that said, Aaron, states that implemented non discretionary concealed carry regimes, which is essentially shell issue, right? Those states over time reduced public shootings by 69%, right? So, and another factor of this, Aaron, and this is I really found interesting as I sit there and read this. And this can explain how the left sometimes can say, hey, concealed carry increases these types of shootings. And so when I read this, it was like, bingo, that's how they can try to manipulate this data. So essentially, some of the data does show, although the total number of deaths and injuries from public shootings actually rises slightly right before and right after, right? So that's interesting that does happen. So, and I won't sit here and read all of it. I can just paraphrase what John Lott surmises is he believes that's because, number one, that during this period of time, and I'm kind of paraphrasing right here as I'm looking at this, is that when they were implemented, not very many people had concealed carry licenses. And he also points out that it's very likely that people that wanted to commit these types of shootings, they did it before folks had the opportunity to arm themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Interesting.
and let me see here if I can. I wasn't planning on this. My older eyes these days in this particular lighting is getting a little bit harder to read. I probably should have turned on another light, but anyway, As in other counties, people who engage in mass public shootings are deterred by the possibility that law abiding citizens may be carrying guns. Such people may be deranged, but they still appear to care whether they themselves will be shot by a person that is armed. And basically, Aaron, he's saying that between that period, 1977 to 1992, essentially brought those shootings in those areas to near zero. So I mean, it just goes to show that the left's concerned about issues that do not come to fruition, and they're completely, of course, they're going to ignore the benefits or the efficacy of concealed carry. And moving forward, you and I are going to be working hard in collecting data, as much data as we can get, and we're probably going to shout out to John Hearn out there and a couple of our other mentors. We're probably going to ask for a little bit of their mentorship in that area. Point us in the right direction of places where we can find the best data, and probably how to extrapolate the data better. And we just want to get better at looking at these types of data sets. And so we're going to promise our audience currently that this is something we're going to build on for the future and for posterity. And it's just a project that you and I have decided we're going to push on.
All right, bro. Before we move on to the next section of the show, I just want to make this quick point that one thing, again, that these anti people being able to carry their guns, they like to say that there's not a significant positive, right, that overcomes the negative of firearms in society. It doesn't matter. Let's just hypothesize that the amount of people that protect themselves equals the amount of crimes committed with firearms. It doesn't matter a hill of beans. Those people that protected themselves still deserve to protect themselves. Right?
Yep.
So,
and Aaron, it absolutely, and we know that the folks that defend themselves exponentially dwarfs that of violent crime. And
yes.
let's just hold down the point that, in a huge percentage of those violent crimes, it's gang crime.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much of murder and aggravated assault is gang crime too. I mean, of course, there's the various types of murders or aggravated assault out there, but again, upwards of that, on the top end, 3 million people way dwarfs the violent crime, including murder, that's being committed. And so what I retort in many cases, let's say that in this perfect utopia of what the anti-gun left want is a disarmed society. But Aaron, we know that disarmed society will be the law abiding,
Mm-hmm.
right? So in a perfect world, you say, okay, private citizens can't own firearms anymore. How are they going to get all the firearms off the street? First off, it's impossible. So of those 250,000 to 3 million people a year that save themselves, how many of those individuals would then be another statistic? Either murder, any type of violent rape, of course, aggravated assault. So how many of those numbers would increase exponentially in violent crime? I would argue that it's a high probability a lot of that would take place. So, it's hard. Obviously, we're just, like you said, we're just hypothesizing, but I think it's important to think about that. And I wasn't completely prepared, but I'll just mention this and I can get into higher detail on another show. I was listening to Jack Carr, his podcast the other day. Phenomenal author, one of my favorite authors. and he was reading reviews about the Terminal List Amazon series, and the amount of hyperbole of some of these leftist news organizations talking about his or the Terminal List being a right wing wet dream, anti government establishment militiaman, beer drinking middle America red state garbage is what they assume. And I'm totally paraphrasing, but that's essentially what a lot of these critics had said. But all along the viewership rating was 96%, and it's a best selling. I mean, like one of the highest rated shows. I should have the numbers that we've seen in a long time. But anyway, my point behind that is it's amazing the people that hate America, hate freedom, would come after Jack Carr's movie that really isn't. It's not representing that. You know, they may make those conclusions, but anyway, with I think now maybe move on to some fun subjects. This was all important. I'm glad we breached some of it, but again, audience, more to follow on this. We're going to really dig deep into this data, and it's going to be a perpetual project for Aaron and I. So maybe move on to some accountability, Aaron.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, so the audience may remember a few shows ago where I've been on a carbine kick again. And, you know, Claud Werner, his blog where he recommended the Ohio Police rifle and carbine qualification as a decent, you know, standard that you could help people, you know, understand and learn how to shoot a rifle better. You know, and it's not super difficult with the par times, and it's only out to 50 yards. But I had made the statement that, number one, I was going to go out and shoot it. And I also had made the statement, and I hope it didn't come off as, you know, I don't know, lack of a better term, sounding arrogant. Hey, I think, you know, a good drill, or maybe an advanced version, I said this on the air, was maybe to split the par times in half. So I put my money where my mouth is, and I did both. Interestingly enough, and I'm going to put some screenshots of my target that I used when I did this, and I used an IDPA target, you know, per Claude's suggestions. That's the target I had. So it's not the complete spirit of the qualification, but I, like I said on the air that couple of shows ago, is that just use what silhouette you have. You know, it doesn't matter if it's the perfect facsimile. The intent is there. So yeah, I use the IDPA target, and I use IDPA scoring. And incidentally, the first time I shot it, I was down 2 points. And when I did it half par times, I only was down 1, which was, I sit and thought about it. It's probably likely because it could have something to do with that I had already shot it once.
Yeah.
But also, Aaron, I observed that when I told myself that I had all that time, you know what I was doing a little bit of was over confirming. Right. So I think that's just maybe a risk if you're used to shooting that type of drill a little bit faster. I think I was over confirming a little bit, but still I was happy with those results. But just, you know, hitting it on a few of the times, which I'll be honest with you, once I started shooting it in half the par times, I was like, this actually is a decent challenge. You know, maybe not for some of our buddies out there that are way better at carbine than myself. I'm an average shooter with carbine, but I plan on getting a hell of a lot better again at it. I used to pay way more attention to carbine. But like, say, for instance, the 5 yard line, one string, 3 rounds in 4 seconds. I was supposed to do that in two. I shot it in 1.38 seconds. At the 7 yard line, there was it was three headshots, 3 rounds in 5 seconds. So I did that in 2.06 seconds. And where it got a little more challenging was when I got to the 25 yard line. So the original 25 yard line start, or one string, there's two strings at 25, is 1.5 seconds, 1 round. It's like, oh boy, that's out at 25, that might be a little tough to do under 75. But I shot that one in 68 seconds, and I viewed my target each time because I wanted to know how each string was, and I was center mass on that one. And this one, I really thought, man, this is going to be a little harder. And that's let's see here. So it's, you load your magazine has 2 rounds only. And from the start signal, you're going to fire 2 rounds standing, kneel, reload from bolt lock, and then 3 more rounds. And I had to get in a hurry on that one. But I shot that. I gave myself a little time. I shot it in 6.03 seconds, which I should have shot under 6. But I guess that 300th of a second, I'm going to give myself. So that's the one that I was right on the par time. So, and then the last one was at 50 yards where it was 10 seconds to fire 3 rounds, starting from standing, dropping to prone. And I did that. So I had to do that in 5 seconds. I did it at 4.89. So nonetheless, I tested that theory that a more advanced version could be doing it in half the par times. And I really, honestly, Aaron, think it is a valuable test. Your thoughts on that?
Oh, it sounds excellent. And I need to do that myself. Because, here we had a good friend reach out to us and say he was going to be in my area and wanted to see if we could maybe hit a class with him that is performance pistol and performance carbine. I'll have to dust knock the rust off of my carbine skills before I go there. But
Aaron, I would absolutely take this, and I resent it to you. The Ohio Police Rifle and Carbine qualification. With the regular par times, it's fairly easy. But if folks aren't rifle shooters or carbine shooters, it might be a little bit of a challenge. So again, that's why I brought that up, and kind of following Claud's lead on that, is it's just an overall good test. Out to 50 yards is likely where civilians that and under are going to use it anyway. So if you get really good at that, you're going to be a formidable shooter. And if you can do it in half the par times, not just because I did it, but I believe that that's a decent standard. So now with some other accountability. So I also shot Kyle Defoor's Hat Qual. I shot the 7-yard stuff pretty, and I won't go into each bit of that. I'll put in the show notes. The 7-yard piece I passed. The 100 yards, I failed miserably. So for the 100 yards piece for the Kyle Defoor Hat Qual, at 100 yards, you start from standing, drop to prone, and fire 10 rounds into a B8 bull in 14 seconds or under. I was under par, and I'm going to post all this on social media. I shot it in right under 13 seconds, or right at 13 seconds. I should have that in front of me right now, but I don't. But it was right at 13 something seconds. But I shot a 65. So when I got down there, I was like, a little bummed about that, but it just shows you where I need to work. And I will say this, and this is not an excuse. It's just a fact. My astigmatism at speed, it is very hard for me to see that B8 bull that well to be able to shoot under time constraints. So unfortunately, I think, like we've been talking about, I think for stuff like that, I think I need that better vision that a LPVO is going to offer me. And it pains me to say that, because as a soldier, I was very prideful about, doing all that type of shooting, out to further distance with just irons or red dots. But it's just a fact, man.
You're
But that was fun, though. I still enjoyed that.
as I'm listening to you
Say
talk
again.
about that, as I'm listening to you talk about that, I look forward to seeing how well I can shoot out at 50 and 100 yards with just the dot now, with my vision, with my synthetic lenses, my
Yeah,
bionic vision, as I say now. I still
I
have a
think. Go ahead.
I still have a little bit of astigmatism that I think there's just no way to get rid of all of it, with my eyes. But I look forward to seeing how much better I can shoot with the dot, with my aim point.
Yeah, you might very well find that you can shoot that call to four a little easier with a dot than I can. It just, man, I I shot the time, and I could, see the B8. So really what I was doing was trying to aim center of the repair center, but still I was not seeing that well enough looking through even my solid aim point T1 that's got good glass. Once I looked through it, my astigmatism was enough that it distorted the target enough that I just was not getting the consistency I believe that I could otherwise. But
Hmm.
it was a lot of fun, though. So one last thing regarding um, accountability on my carbine shooting recently is that, well, two things actually. So I mentioned this Alt C Army target, which I'm going to hold up again here. And you may recall that during that carbine episode, I recommended some of the Army's alternate qualifications using this Alt C target at 25 meters. And I had pressed the issue that I think that if people get really good at those qualifications, they're going to be very good with a carbine or a rifle. And and so what I'm going to be honest with you, I'd shot some pistol too after I'd shot those other carbine drills, and I'd been out in the heat for 2 hours, and I frankly got tired, but I wanted to at least play with this Alt C again. So I didn't adjust my zero or anything. So I just adjusted my hold and held the top of the silhouettes. And I simply said, okay, I'm gonna press the trigger as quickly as I can on a solid sight picture. So essentially, if you want to use a term, I for folks who would understand this, more of a rapid fire version. And although I made a good percentage of my hits, what it told me was that it was still challenging enough that people will get, and I will get, a ton of value out of shooting those specific alternate qualifications. So I'm just encouraging folks, and I'll put in the show notes again the reminder of that episode that I put in there, the TMs and the technical bulletins that you can use to do those qualifications. Do you have anything more to add to that, Aaron?
No, just that I'm looking forward to getting out there, and I think we're going to move on and talk a little bit about me getting to start training again. But what I'm looking forward to is being able to shoot prone again without my neck bugging me. So I guess, Eric, I'll just jump right in here. So I will have I'm looking forward to the fact that I'm having my final appointment with Dr. Ziegler, my surgeon out of Texas Back Institute, and I expect him to fully release me to do all my activities, such as, of course, jujitsu and
Yeah.
lifting. So, and I'm looking forward to that. But so I did start shooting again last weekend, And man, I'm so stoked to be shooting again. I've gone to the range about every couple days. I'm just gonna try and make up for lost time.
Man, Aaron, I'm so pumped. I just wanted to add that I'm so glad you're able to train again, man. At least on your shooting.
Well, thank you, buddy. And you know, one bummer is I was going to go to the range right after we recorded this, but unfortunately, my range is shutting down before I can make it. So it's interesting. They're up in their game. My range has had some. Let me see how I can put this nicely. They've let the that awesome range. It's to listeners, it's called United States Shooting Academy, which when it comes to the amount of bays, the what's available to shoot there, it's got to be one of the best ranges in the country.
Oh, absolutely.
But the ownership has let it slide, and I think that they realize that maybe they were getting a lot of, maybe they were losing some memberships, etc. But I think that in response, somehow they've started up in their game there, and maybe that's part of, they've had to start employing people for longer, having more employees, but having to cut their hours a little bit. So,
Well, Aaron, I have a question for you because USSA obviously when it first was in business many years ago, their focus was, I mean, it was going to be the premier training facility or training location for shooting. And I think at that point in time, it certainly was.
mhm.
And, a good friend of ours and another mentor, Mike Seeklander, world champion shooter and just a kick ass person. And he was, I think he was the training director out there at one
I believe
point. And
so, and that's why he lives in this area now.
yeah, yeah. So he probably found that freaking that area, Oklahoma, is just a pretty darn good place.
Oh yeah.
Um, and so, but anyway, my point is it's just a shame that it didn't do much better, and maybe it was, simply the management. But what I was going to ask you is, do they still do quite a bit of classes out there as well?
I
External
think
trainers and or the facility themselves. Do they have staff
I
instructors still?
they do, and it may just be that I'm not tracking it, but I don't know if there's any lots of you know, nationally known instructors that show up there. But I'll tell you, one of these days I'll start trying to host some people there more. But I also have another range that, with my buddy Matt at Training Ground, we're using his range too.
Which is where we taught our class last year in Tulsa.
hmm
Yep, our
So
defensive pistol and our weapons based integration class. Yep,
so
that went phenomenal.
oh, it was a
By the way,
blast. We need to do that again really soon.
I'm
Now,
getting one ready here for the fall myself.
awesome.
So
I hope I can make that. Now, Eric, so just I'm just kind of going through the list. That the thing that I'm excited about, and then I'll get to some shooting stuff. But so being able to hopefully do jujitsu here really soon. Of course, I'm going to go into it slow. But last night we were at the lake with our buddy, Becky's best friend Natalie, and her husband John. Now, Becky
good
and I
people.
started working on some techniques, started going over a few things. And I was like, man, this is a blast. I've not got to do this in a long time. I was working on some arm triangles with her, because that's one thing that I get a little bit lost when I get in mount, and about the only thing I can think of is an Americana, you know. So that arm triangle is going to be good, but just sufficing to say that it was fun working some technique last night, because I literally had
Awesome.
not, in over 3 months.
Well,
So
Aaron, if I can stop you there, man, I tell you some of the best details on that arm triangle from the mount, man. I've picked up from John Danaher's stuff, and I don't know. maybe I can send you some of that because
Yeah.
yeah, that's man uber valuable.
So, but the plan now is back to kind of before I dig a little deeper into shooting. But I am planning on now. I'm going to start hitting a couple of competitions each month. Now that is one of the benefits of living in Oklahoma. We have a competition culture here,
Oh yeah, I'm
and
jealous.
you you have an opportunity to hit a few IDPA matches a month. Now, right now at Oil Capital, people that may be familiar with that, dude, they're running um I think every other week evening IDPA shoots that go into some low light stuff. Okay. And then
That's awesome.
you've got Steel Challenge at one range, and then you've got Steel Challenge now at my range. You've got IDPA at both of those ranges. You've got USPSA. I mean, you literally probably have your choice of two matches a weekend around here.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah,
And
it's
Aaron, and if I can just say that there's only two IDPA matches that are fairly close to me, and but it just always seems like I'm something's going on with work. So it would be
mhm.
awesome if I had something I could choose, every weekend. It would be a lot easier. But frankly, again, this is a show about accountability. I just hadn't made it a priority. If I
Yeah.
made it a priority, I could get to some of those matches. So I'm just going to be upfront about that. I'm going to make it a priority along with you.
Well, heck, bro, you are new to having a good range that you can go to
Yep,
already. So you've been taking advantage of that, and dude, you've
big
been doing
time.
a lot of shooting lately.
Yeah, and
So,
I've been shooting pretty much every week. Not last, excuse me, I shot last weekend with Nick, but the weekend before that I had to skip a week
yeah.
for work reasons. But anyway, go ahead. I'm taking from your thunder.
Oh, that's fine, bro. So now, like I said, I've hit the range. I think about every other day this week, and now I started actually in the middle of the night feeling a little embarrassed of my little clip that I shared on Instagram, but
You shouldn't be,
I
bro.
was
I
sitting
love it,
there.
man.
I was sitting there thinking, man, I kind of wish I had a GoPro because, I want to start again showing some accountability of us
Hmm.
shooting. And I thought, man, I'm just going to try this for the heck of it. And I posted that little clip of me with my Oki GoPro. Dude, I literally showed my target and I put my GoPro in my shirt pocket and just for the heck of it and did a quick little string there and yelled yeehaw at the end trying to indicate my Oki GoPro kind of vibe there, but
That
it
was
was
awesome. I love it, man. It made my day when you sent that to me.
but
It,
it was fun, but just part and parcel of being able to go shoot. And here's what I am going to do is that range is literally a mile from my office. So I think from now on, I'm going to hit that range a couple times a week during my lunch hour. An hour worth of shooting, an hour or so. When I show up there with all my mags loaded, now that's another thing I have to do is I have to show up with at least two pistols because in this heat and the sun, dude, my pistol gets too hot to freaking shoot. Now, but so having all that stuff ready to go and just running down there and shooting for about an hour is going to be money because it's still, even though it's not too bad, my range is about 30 minutes from my house, but dude, that's an hour worth of driving. So, but man, I think that's it right now. But I'll on the next episode hopefully be able to give that good news that I'm able to hit some jits. I
yeah,
think he'll release me. So
I really look forward to you being able to, excuse me, get back out on the mats, man. And I'll just say it right now. Aaron, did you see that the combative summit sold out?
I
That our
heard
good
that.
that our Yep, that our good friend, shout out to John Valentine, such a great dude. I am super pumped about being able to finally meet and train with him in person. I'm just really jazzed about that. But Aaron, I kind of like to take some credit. I'm going to say I believe that that last push, it was all because that one time we mentioned it here on the air.
I believe so. I believe that put it over the top, man.
Of, of course, absolutely joking. It's we'd be lucky if one person signed up hearing it on there. I'm joking, a
Hey,
little
but
bit self
that's
deprecation, but honestly, and I was texting back and forth. John was texting me a few times earlier in the week, and one of it was that he texted me the picture of it being sold out, and I just congratulated him because although he's a humble person, he's you know of course it is a team effort, but John organized that. He deserves every darn bit of credit for this coming together. Had he not have taken the steps to put that together, it wasn't going to happen.
hmm
Or it wouldn't happen like it did or in this time frame. But he's just being humble. But over the year, I just want to congratulate John and give him some props for him putting that together and essentially putting together the pinnacle of all the instructors in the combatives and weapons integration community. And man, I'm pumped. I get to go there in just under 2 months now. But yeah, I just wanted to joke about that. Of course, I hope everybody that heard me say that knows I'm absolutely kidding. It was John's work and his marketing, and the other folks in the combative summit marketing it as well. I just wanted to play a little bit, but man, awesome! It sold out. But then I think that hopefully, Aaron, I didn't step on some of your accountability.
Man, all I am going to say is that another update regarding my surgery recovery. Of course, the main symptom for the last 20 years that I've had is numbness in my fingers. And anyone that knows about stenosis in the neck, that's the main symptom, right? I can say this that has reduced so much that I notice it now because it maybe once a day I notice it. Before, I mean, throughout the day that would occur, and I'd have to deal with it. But again, that is what's going to allow me to shoot prone again. I'm stoked about that. But another thing, Eric, that I'm looking forward to is, remember, I set up my home gym right before it was maybe. mm, it was maybe a couple of months that I was able to lift a little bit, but I was so limited because every time I would lift, I would come away with my arms so numb. And of course, my
Mm.
strength had gone by then. So I am looking forward to hitting my home gym hopefully this week.
Well,
So
Aaron, and I know, I'm gonna throw this out there again. We always mention starting strength. Aaron, if you want me to, just so you don't, I mean, the book is awesome, and you should be using starting strength. But to get you kind of warmed back up, I can straight up write you a little bit of a program if you want me to.
oh, I'd love that. Please do.
Yeah, just to get you rolling, and you do it for a few weeks or a month, and then put all your focus into programming from the starting strength book. I just want to make things a little easier for you because I can just jump on and hit you a program up
Oh yeah.
in no time if you want me to.
Oh, I'd love to. I'm sure that a lot of what I'm going to do is with the bar.
Oh yeah,
Actually, probably all of it.
yeah,
But
yeah. Oh yeah.
I am
Aaron,
just
did you guys get a dip bar?
mm-mm, mm-mm.
Darn,
No,
you're gonna have to remedy that.
Yeah,
But of
there's
course,
a
man,
few.
your presses will be just fine. I believe dip bar is important, but man, you're gonna be doing, bench press and overhead press anyway. So
Yeah, most certainly. And one of the main things is, and my son always laughs at me when I talk about lifting. I start doing the lifting motion. That punk was making fun of me yesterday. Doing
which one, Josh or Graham?
Graham. Graham's the feisty one, man. But so,
Well,
so
well,
yeah,
go
I am
ahead.
looking forward to being able to do squats because that was the main movement that would really jack my neck up, of course, because it wasn't pressure. It was just simply, dude, if I moved my neck, so here's vertical, right? If I move my neck 3 degrees back or 5 degrees back, I'm just giving a number, my fingers would start going numb and burning. So, but
Well,
bro, so
interestingly enough, yeah, go ahead.
oh, finish your thought.
All I was gonna say, and it's not horrible right now. I mean, the audience has known I've had back issues over the years. I do have a request from one of my doctors for another MRI. I'm getting around doing just fine. I'm mainly to the point is I'm training jujitsu pretty hard. I am not lifting as heavy as I was even 2 months ago because I'm trying to make sure that I'm being cool with making sure that I'm not doing too much when my goal right now is improving on my jujitsu. But because I've been working on my feet a lot, I have been having what incidentally starting to feel like sciatic issues in my left side now.
Hmm.
Which when I had my major injury, it was on my right side. So I've got something going on that I need to have checked out, and it's caused me to back off a little bit in my barbell lifting. Now, I'm
Hmm.
not at all saying I'm not doing barbell lifting. I absolutely am. I'm just not. I'm not doing it as heavy, and I'm doing a lot more kettlebell stuff and a lot more body weight right now. So that's part of my fitness accountability right now because I am trying my best. I mean, I've been saying for a long time, I have jujitsu goals in the next couple of years. And this MRI, Aaron, is going to honestly be a decision point for me, which I've talked about for a while regarding if I'm going to look at some form of a surgery. Now, Aaron,
Bro,
I'm not at all interested in getting a fusion. I don't think I need that. I just think maybe maybe need some cleanup in some of my disc, especially my lumbar region. And
well,
because Aaron, I'm like you, man. I mean, we turned 50 this year. I feel good enough that I'm ready to start lifting heavy again.
mhm.
And I'm just not confident enough in it right now with my goals and my jujitsu that I'm kind of going more into functional lifting right now, which is what I've been doing the last couple months. And I'll stick with that, especially through the summit. Risk any injury going to the summit. I'm just trying to avoid that. But
Well,
anyway,
bro,
Aaron, I'm pumped
as
for you on your. Go ahead.
I was just gonna, yeah, well, I appreciate that, bro. Is I think we've reached kind of where we wanted to top this show off, bro. But as before we cut out of here, so Eric, if you do end up needing to have surgery, dude, I'm gonna really push you to my surgeon.
Yeah, Aaron, I had already thought about, that's probably what I need to do is, just take the trip out there to have it done.
Bro,
I'm in agreement.
you would he'd probably just make you fly down there one time, and then the rest you'd be teledoc, and then one time go down there for the surgery. But I'm telling you, man, lots of people say, "Oh, I'm going to one of the best doctors in the country." Dude, he's legit one of the best in the country. So,
Awesome.
and
Yeah, I had thought about that very that very thing about getting with your doctor for certain.
Now,
So
to be very clear, neck surgery is not as bad recovery wise as back surgery. But the there's people I know right now that had neck surgery and they are in excruciating pain. And dude, I
yeah,
had to have a lot of work done on my neck.
yeah,
When Dr. Ziegler came in to see Becky right after my surgery, he didn't even sit down. He walked in the room, and as he was walking in the room, he said, "Whoa, that was a lot of work." He the bone spurs, etc., didn't really show up as much on the X-ray, so they had to do a lot of work on it. But for me, the worst part of this surgery has been not being able to do much. And I
oh, I
got
know
to
that's what I don't look forward to at all.
part of
Yeah.
accountability, man, in this time not being able to be very active. Now maybe I should have cut the beer and maybe a little bit of food, but I put on about 10 pounds while I've been in this recovery.
Well, you're getting the opportunity to square that away right now, so
Well,
I know
so
you will.
my key is on I just have to believe that the fact that Eric was never in pain. Never.
That's
Okay.
awesome.
My because of the way they take you and lay you on your back and pull your neck down over the end of the table and strap your
Mhm.
head down. So because of that, it makes your muscles really sore. But I don't call sore pain, right?
Yeah.
Um, I never ever felt like I had metal hammered and screwed into my spine. So, and I just believe that had to do with Dr. Ziegler's skill. So,
Well,
enough
man,
about that for
I'm
now.
with you. Yeah.
But yeah, if you,
Aaron, can you give me 2 or 3, maybe 5 minutes max of your time?
of course,
Because I did because I think it's important in accountability to hit just a little bit on jujitsu that can help people.
okay,
Um, so just real quick, number one, and I said this other cool shout out to Lee King, my instructor. It was real cool because Justin and I run the 0600 Daybreakers, and Lee's been coming and teaching in the morning with us, and it just so happened to be one of my days, and I was there on Thursday night, typical training, and shout out to Roy Marsh. He was teaching that night, which is one of Lee's instructors. And Lee said, "Hey, Eric, I'm going to be there in the morning." I was pretty pumped about it. And you probably saw some of the social. So Lee's going to start coming down a little more during the Daybreakers and taking class, which I'm super cool with. One of the things I was going to mention, and I'm just going to double down on video. And it's one of those things you can't be with your instructor all the time,
hmm
right? I think one of the most valuable training regimens we push on this show all the time is video and visualization.
hmm
And so one of the things that really just has changed a lot of my jujitsu game in the last month, man, has been a lot of the Danaher stuff, and specifically a lot of the top game stuff. It really has kind of changed the way I think on top game, and it has really improved my game on the top. So I just wanted to again push our audience members out there that, man, if you know, augment a lot of your training with video. I think it's just valuable. And so that's one thing that I also wanted to mention is, man, I'm mad at myself for like the last 6 months, Aaron. I hadn't been going to open mat.
hmm
You just get busy with either work or trying to make sure stuff's done around the house. But man, the last few weeks I've been back at open mat on Sundays, and man, what a blast. And really sometimes it's just cool just to roll in and just freaking roll. And so yeah, I definitely have been having a blast and a lot of development at Open Mat. So yeah, man, I think that's a bit. Excuse me. I think that's about it for me on accountability. It's kind of cool that we should do this way more, Aaron. Just do accountability shows.
Yeah,
You know,
we that was one of the features of our show in the past, but we've just been having we migrated towards having more time with our guests.
yeah.
Now, I actually prefer having more time with our guests than having to do the accountability at the end of each show, but at the same time, we still need to do it.
Well, Aaron, again, a lot of our listeners comment on that's one of their favorite things, and a lot of our mentors comment on that. So
Hmm.
this is a way we're going to continue to do it. We're going to have individual shows where we just kind of summarize our accountability, for the last month or something like that. So let's keep this up for certain.
Sounds good, brother.
Well, Aaron, you have a blessed evening. I'm gonna go downstairs and figure out what I'm gonna grill. I'm gonna pull something out of the freezer and grill me some chow.
Excellent. Well, same thing. I'm going to take my family out to go eat. It's our
Cool.
Sunday night thing where we sit down to a meal someplace to where Becky or I don't have to cook. And let me say, when I say Becky or I mean Becky. She does all the cooking.
It
But
is funny. It's the reverse here, but I love cooking.
mhm,
So
mhm.
but Jana's a great cook too, man. Shout out to her because she told me that she sit down and watch most of the Tessa Booth episode. That made me happy because I know
Oh,
she
cool.
she watches our show every now and then.
Oh,
So
awesome.
it's cool. She watched that, but yeah, I cook more than her, but it's because it's my choice because I love
Yeah,
cooking.
yeah.
So, well, Aaron, you have a blessed evening, man. I love you, man. You have a good one.
Love you too, brother. Have a good one.
Bye.